Hello. Happy Monday. I'm trying again because the first time, I don't know what, something went wrong. Um, so welcome to another Mothering and Matrescence Monday. Today I will be joined by Emily Kelly. She is a sleep consultant. And so we're going to be talking about baby sleep and all the challenges that come with it. This is part of the Mothering and Matrescence Monday series. I've been doing different talks, different lives with different specialists. We cover lots of different topics about the challenges, or the common challenges that we experience as we become mothers. We talked about breastfeeding. We talked about pelvic health, birth trauma. We talk about the parental brain. That was the last one we did a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And I haven't done any of these lives again since we had a few bank holidays here in the UK. So there were a couple of Mondays where we didn't have these sessions. But I am back today and I'm hoping Emily will be joining us any minute now. And while she does, I will just introduce her. She is a sleep consultant and she is a sleep consultant, OCN level 543. She will explain us what that means in a minute. Her mission is to reach as many families as she can with a respectful, responsive, gentle and empowering sleep advice. She wants to create a safe and non-judgmental space with her Snoozy Sleep website and her brand. And so families know that they don't need to navigate through chronic sleep deprivation as part of their parenting, as a part of their parenting journey. Let me see if I can get her now. Oh, just a second. Here we go. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Yes. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Emily?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking. I do apologise that the lighting is not aesthetically pleasing.
It's absolutely fine. I can see you perfectly. I can see you've got some sunshine as well.
Yeah, I've got glorious sunshine. I'm sat at the back of the house where it's really lovely and warm. I just said to my partner, I really do think I was a cat in a past life, because I do tend to seek out like those really cosy, warm spots of the house. However, like I said, the light isn't too flattering. But anyway, I'm here and it's lovely, lovely to join you.
Great. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So we're going to talk about sleep, right? So before we go into that topic, I just want to introduce why we're talking about this, as I'm come from the Matrescence coaching background. And the reason I do this series, I'm talking to different people of different backgrounds to talk about the biggest challenges that we experience as we become mothers. Really, when we become mothers, there's so much going on. There's so many challenges that we just need a lot of support. And I'm just talking to people that can help moms through different challenges that they may experience in this journey, and that could ease some of that, the stress and the anxiety of the first few months or years even, right? And I think sleep is a big one when we talk about becoming a mother. And for me, it certainly was. It was so difficult. And one thing is that, babies should sleep, right? You should sleep like a baby, they say. But they don't really sleep, and it's really hard to get them to sleep sometimes. And then you got that whole sleep deprivation that can really take a toll in your mental health and how you operate as a mother in your life and your health. So everything has a knock-on effect on sleep, really. So if you could just tell us a bit about so why do babies don't sleep that easy? Why do they go to sleep when they are tired?
Okay. So just in case there's anyone watching who doesn't know sort of who I am and what I do, because the whole sleep consultancy thing is really new in the grand scheme of parenting. If you were to ask your parents or your grandparents, if you're still lucky enough to have them around, and you were to talk to them about the fact that you're working with a sleep consultant, they're not going to know what that is or what that person does. So this is a new phenomena. This is a westernized phenomena within the parenting space. So I am a pediatric sleep consultant. I'm qualified and certified to OCN level 5 standard, and I also have other qualifications in tongue tie, allergies, reflux and colic, because I have a really specialist and niche interest in the physiology of the infant, the well-being of the infant, the health of the infant, because a lot of the time when you have a baby who doesn't sleep, you tend to find that the sleep issue is a manifestation of a health issue rather than a sleep issue as an isolated incident. So that's where my specialism and my interest is really starting to lie, because time and time and time again, I've got lots of families coming to me thinking that their baby doesn't sleep, doesn't want to sleep, they've got a sleep issue. But actually you tend to find that it's because they've got feeding issues, it's because they've got a missed tongue tie, they've got body tension and trauma from a fast birth or a long birth, they were in an awkward position in utero, they've got allergies, intolerances, there's so many different things, like I said, that can manifest themselves as a sleep issue. And the higher frequency of those scenarios that's been coming to me is why I've wanted to specialise in that. So that kind of gives you sort of me in a nutshell. I really am truly a holistic sleep consultant. So, you know, looking at everything as a whole, not just looking at sleep, trying to fix sleep in that traditional sleep training culture. I'm very much interested in baby mental health, their physical well-being, and obviously the paternal and the maternal mental health element that comes in with it as well. So it's kind of like this 360 holistic approach that I take as well. So if we have a look at, you know, it's such a broad question, but it's such a great question. Why do babies not sleep? So I think the best place to start is to talk about the fact that what I do, so the industry that I'm in, sleep consultancy, it's wildly oversaturated with lots of terrible sleep consultants, okay? So sleep consultancy as a profession is an unregulated industry. Anybody can become a sleep consultant. You need no medical backing, you need no medical background. It's totally unregulated. We've got a few governing bodies, but nothing that kind of keeps a real handle on who's in the industry and what professionals we have. So like I said, it's wildly oversaturated because it's become a very popular thing to do, and it is a very, 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 very rewarding vocation, I have to say, but lots of people wanting to do it, meaning we've got lots of people, unfortunately, who are really poorly trained, who are coming into the space, and they're putting lots of false narratives out there, which then creates a misunderstanding with parents, a very mismanaged expectation over what their babies should be doing at certain ages.
I think it is one of the things that there's so much conflicting advice when you go into Google, which is what most parents do. Is like, okay, why does my baby doesn't sleep? Why can't you get my baby to sleep? And it's like a rabbit hole when you go in there. There's so much conflicting advice that is just, as a mother, it's so hard to find what to do or how to help your baby when there's so many things that are conflicting, not necessarily helpful.
I think that's a very important point, which is the conflicting advice, which naturally is a consequence of having too many professionals in the industry. You can jump from Instagram page to Instagram page, blog to blog, YouTube video to YouTube video, and you will see a huge scope, a wide variety of what people are saying. However, we are seeing a massive shift in the sleep consultancy industry. We're seeing a real progression forward of loads of fantastic sleep consultants coming through, all taking the same approach. And I'm finding that the message is becoming more succinct. So lots more people are really wanting to kind of take things back to basics for parents, which is we need to normalize for you what babies are going to do at certain ages, because if we normalize it, the stress levels decrease immediately, because if parents know from the beginning that their 3 to 4 week old baby is going to cluster feed for hours naturally, normally, in those later stages of the evening, they're not going to be calling up a sleep consultant with a 3 week old baby thinking that their baby needs to be fixed. Rather, they will lean into it, they will surrender into it, they will have the support around them. Now, I know support is a privilege, but if they can get the support, they'll have the support around them. Educating mothers on how to eat nutritionally, to be able to look after their physical well-being, their mental well-being, because obviously there are foods that will support better with energy levels in the day if they're having really tough nights in the early stages. So the management of expectations right from the get-go will just just revolutionizes parents and how they approach their little one's sleep.
Absolutely. And I think that's the word, right? The expectations. We come into motherhood with so many expectations about how our babies should sleep, should feed, should behave. And when our babies, because babies are different and unique, they don't fall into these categories of what we think is normal, then we think there's a problem that needs fixing. But actually, baby sleep is just not how we sleep. And it's not probably how we wish they sleep, because we want that rest. So what more or less can someone expect? I mean, I know this changes as baby grows, and like I said, baby from baby. So, but what are these kind of expectations that we could give to a parent as they coming into motherhood?
That's a really good question. And I think, you know, the beginning of this is, and I know you will agree with this wholeheartedly, as will every other mother that's going to watch this, or parent, the difference that it would make to a parent's journey, particularly a first-time parent, the difference that it would make if they had this knowledge and this education standard as part of their antenatal classes. You know, I talk to people time and time again. Instead of sitting in a room with a doll and doing some fake breastfeeding and all the other outdated stuff that a lot of the NCT groups and stuff do. I mean, no shade on NCT, but they can definitely kind of, you know, get up to speed a little bit. If instead we were educating parents with what you've just asked me, which is give me a rough idea on what I can expect, you know, just so I can kind of get a handle on the difference that would make to people stepping into their parenting journey for the first time would be absolutely phenomenal. Because like you said, what they won't do is they won't go home. You know, they take this baby home, they don't have any idea about sleep, and then this baby isn't sleeping for 6 hours at a time that they would really like, and then they obviously and they don't have the tools in their toolbox to cope with the sleep deprivation and kind of what those early days look like, right? So there was something that you touched on when you asked me that question, which is looking at the uniqueness of each child and of every individual, because every baby is their own sovereign being. They are their own human, and like us and how we progress into adulthood, every single baby will have their own triggers for sleep, their own unique sleep needs. So what works for one won't work for another, which is why you should never compare your baby with anybody else's, because they're all totally different. So there is kind of like maybe like a baseline is the best term. There is like a baseline, you know, it doesn't fluctuate too much. So there are some sort of standardized things that you could most probably have to understand, but it's always going back to that point that your baby will most probably fluctuate outside of what these averages are. So it's very easy to jump online. If you were to go onto Google and type in awake windows for babies, you'll get one of these charts that gives the, you know, 4 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months, 10 to 18 months. It will give awake windows. It will give rough nap schedules. And what they are all based on, which a lot of people don't realise, it's all anecdotal. So there's no scientific research behind any of those numbers. It's all anecdotal from what sleep consultants have accumulated over the years of exposure and experience. And essentially it's all been consolidated from random points. However, there obviously is backing to those awake windows. So like myself, what you find over the years of doing it is that there is a baseline to that sleep biology. There is a baseline to how sleep matures and how it progresses, and how you start to see their routines shift and their nap transitions, and their bedtime might go a little bit later or a little bit earlier. So in terms of kind of what to expect, so in those early stages, in that 4th trimester period, that is all about honouring the 4th trimester. That is about, it doesn't matter whether it's your 1st baby or your 5th baby. I feel that journey every time needs to be taken as if you've never done it before, you know. Leaning into it, surrendering into it. You know, it's about honouring the matrescence, obviously your journey into motherhood and the impact that it has on you as a person, as a woman, as a birthing person. And then you have obviously the sort of baby side, so it's helping them navigate into the world, understanding what they're experiencing. Sleep wise, you've literally got nothing on your side, you've got nothing working in your favour. Unless you are born with unless that baby is born who genetically is a good sleeper, has no health implications, so there's no tongue tie, there's no allergies, there's no feeding issue, you'll most probably find that you have a pretty relatively straightforward journey in the 4th trimester. But most babies, it's going to be up and down. Their sleep is really immature. You've got cluster feeding sessions. They have no sleep hormones. They've got no sleep pressure. There's nothing working in your favour. So yeah, exactly. So you kind of have that expectation from the offset. However, there are simple things that you can do. So you can introduce a very basic bedtime from 2, 3, 4 weeks old if you want to. Babies absolutely love predictability. They love predictability. They love routine. And when you hear the word routine, a lot of people panic. Oh my God, routine, I'll be under house arrest. I don't want to do things by the clock. That's not what I mean when I talk about routine, particularly for a baby that's obviously within those 0 to 12 weeks of 4th trimester. Rather, a routine is looking at really basic sequence of events that you can do throughout the day that just builds that rhythmicity to the day, that gives baby some sort of predictability to the day. And for a lot of parents, it actually really helps them with their sort of mental health journey during their parenthood. Just having a very gentle sort of, you know, predictable set of events that you're going to have throughout the day, which normally with a newborn baby, by the time you've fed them, you've changed their nappy, you've sung them a song, they need to go back to sleep. And then bedtime routine, very simple, top and tail. So, you know, a little bit of cotton wool, just kind of clean their neck, obviously, because all their milk accumulates in their lovely little newborn neck rolls. So, you know, clean their neck, make sure that you just clean nappy. You could even put a fresh pair of pajamas on them like a new baby grow. And then make an obvious point of switching up the environment. So lights down low, nice and calm. Make it very obvious that you're starting to transition from awake to asleep, and that's it. But it's really simple, but actually even those simple things can make a real difference in the newborn stages. And then as you progress, between 4 to 6 months is where you will see sleep progress quite rapidly, actually, which is commonly referred to as the 4-month sleep regression.
The famous and infamous
the famous 4-month sleep regression, which everybody will say to you, you're going to die, you're never going to survive the 4-month sleep regression, it's awful, our baby never slept again. Whereas there's a massive misconception with the 4-month marker because of this word regression. So people actually think that there is a regressive period with sleep, whereas actually from a biology standpoint, from a sleep science standpoint, sleep cannot regress. Sleep cannot go backwards. So the reason the word regression is used is because it feels regressive. Okay, so there's a massive difference between it being regressive and it feeling regressive.
Why does it feel?
So it
what does it feel
regressive because normally a lot of babies, you'll tend to find that a lot of babies actually do sleep relatively well. So obviously it's age and developmental appropriate, but a lot of babies from about 8 to sort of 14, 15 weeks sleep relatively well. So sort of 3 to 4 hour chunks before they need a feed. Their naps are relatively okay. And then all of a sudden they hit this 4-month marker and they're only sleeping for 30 minutes in the day. And it's really difficult to get them to go to bed, and they're waking up every hour. So that's why it feels regressive.
It feels like they've gone back. Yes.
Exactly. So that's why it feels regressive. But actually, there's been this exponential shift forward. So it's actually a progression. So there's this exponential shift forward in their sleep development, in their sleep biology. And the biggest shift is that the brain takes over the reins for sleep. So prior to 4 months, there was no neurological lead with sleep. The brain had no responsibility for sleep prior to 4 months. Around the 4-month marker, because we're still not quite sure, they say between 16 to 18 weeks is when this sleep shift happens. The brain takes over the reins for sleep, and what that means is all of a sudden the circadian rhythm starts to develop. The sleep homeostasis kicks in, which is our sleep pressure drive that we get throughout the duration of the day. Melatonin starts to be produced by baby, cortisol starts to be produced by baby, and that sleep architecture, all of those really complex systems come into play. And what that does is it wreaks havoc on their sleep, because all of a sudden they've got all of these neurological changes that's happening with their sleep, and this tiny little baby doesn't know what to do with it. So I tend to say that around that sort of 4-month marker is when you can actually start to put a little bit more of an established daytime routine in place, because you've got more
because they have the neurological systems to support that and to help with that.
Exactly. Exactly. So because you've got that sort of brain development going on, you've got more human biology on your side to start putting those very gentle routines into place and focusing a bit more on sleep. And then what happens is it just continues to progress. So 6 to 9 months, 10 to 18 months. And as you progress, what you will find are consistently their sleep needs will change, because as they get older and they develop, their sleep will naturally mature. And as their sleep is maturing, their sleep needs will change. And what you'll normally find is its naps are decreasing. So you'll go from 4 to 3 naps, 3 to 2 naps, 2 to 1 nap, obviously then no naps at all.
So they're slowly moving, so they're slowly moving towards consolidating in a way.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. The brain and the body is just very slowly, just continuously nudging towards what we would refer to as adult sleep, which is that continuous and predictable consolidation of sleep, whilst also still navigating developmental milestones and everything else, all those other external variables that are outside of your control, which is why sleep is so intricate and so nuanced and so difficult to talk about sometimes, because there are so many things that could get in the way of a little one's sleep, which is why working with a sleep consultant can sometimes be revolutionary and very empowering for parents, because having the bespoke side of the service to really tap into the individual needs of the child,
uniqueness of your child,
of that child, that's where sleep consultancy really comes into its own, when you really want to kind of sort of home in on that uniqueness. But that's kind of like that very generalized overview of like what that timeline looks like, and it's all driven, it all comes back to the neurological development of that child, because as that brain is continuing to develop, so are the sleep systems and sleep architecture and everything that comes with it. And that's where you see those shifts in their routine, their milk feeds, and kind of everything else that
all okay?
Am I back?
I just lose that last but it's fine, it's just a word. Great. So that's very enlightening, and I think it gives us quite a good overview. And one of the things that I think comes a lot with sleep is that, like we spoke about, that there's conflicting advice, there's so much information on the internet, and I know that probably many people out there that when you get to reach a sleep consultant, it's because you're desperate. It's because you just want to sleep, you just want to rest, you're sleep deprived, and you're really considering so many options. And so I want to talk about sleep training. So we are desperate, we want to sleep. We see there's this method that can magically get your baby to sleep through the night. What can you tell someone that is considering some sleep training technique or method?
Okay, so this is a really emotive, quite provocative conversation, because there's loads of layers to it.
Of course.
The problem that we've got is that what happened is there was a very large community that started to build out, which essentially is the anti-sleep training community. Okay.
Yeah.
So when the really traditional sleep training methods started to become outdated and people were calling people out, you know, they weren't complementing infant mental health, they were behaviourist approaches. So cry out, fervour, extinction crying, controlled crying, these are all behaviourist approaches to sleep. These are these view sleep as an issue, as a behavioural issue that needs to be fixed. You are literally changing the way in which that infant responds in a sleep situation. So obviously what then happened is we had this surge of what is referred to as the anti-sleep training community, and we need the anti-sleep training community because these are the individuals that are advocating for babies and their families to educate and empower families that you don't need to use these methods in order to optimize and improve your baby's sleep. However, the downside of this is that it's kind of shifted the other way, and the anti-sleep training narrative and dialogue is so big that many people misunderstand it as anything that you do with a baby's sleep is sleep training. So this is why so many families get to a point of desperation, what I call a sleep SOS. So families get into a sleep SOS scenario and have been almost paralyzed into inaction because of all this terrifying information that they're getting. You know, if you do X, Y, Z, you'll destroy your attachment with your baby.
Yeah.
And then
they're putting on to very deprived circumstances, and they're putting up with a lot of struggle with their babies because they think that anything would have a negative impact on their babies.
Yeah, this is what's happened. It's kind of gone the other way. It's so big now that people think if I do anything with my baby's sleep, that's sleep training, and I'm going to damage my attachment with my baby. So one of my missions, what kind of underpins my mission at Snoozy, is that I want families to know that there are so many other options outside of what people know as the traditional sleep training methods. You do not have to do cry out. You do not have to do fervour. You do not have to do extinction crying. You do not have to do control crying. You do not need to night wean, you know, early. You don't need to water down bottle feeds. All of these ridiculous things that have been sort of, you know, still sort of coming through, unfortunately. So then the question is, well, if we don't do those things, how do you help a baby to sleep? You know, how do you optimize the baby's sleep if you're not doing what traditional sleep training is? And it is unique to every baby, but essentially kind of what underlies that is, first of all, it's looking at the health and well-being of the child. Because as I said earlier, so many babies who aren't sleeping well, it's not because of it being a sleep issue. It's because there is something else getting in the way of their ability to sleep. So working with a holistic sleep consultant like myself, the first port of call, I'm not looking at sleep. I want to know about your baby's history, everything. I want to know about your baby's history. I want to know about how they were conceived. I want to know what their birth was like. I want to know if there's any family history of food allergies or intolerances. I want to know what their feeding journey has been like. Are they bottle or breastfed? Is there a tongue tie? Have they seen an osteopath? Do they need any craniosacral therapy work? There is a ton of stuff before I even look at sleep. Then when looking at sleep, it's about all of the education points on sleep hygiene. So looking at a conducive sleep environment, supporting families with safe bed sharing if they want to do safe bed sharing, looking at nutrition for older children, looking at milk and food schedules, looking at daytime routines, looking at bedtime routines, looking at pre-nap routines, whole host of stuff before you even get to the settling. Now, the settling, i.e. how baby goes to sleep, is what people think of when they think of sleep training. Right?
The actual putting down.
Literal putting down of baby. Now I've talked you through that and literally whipped through it. Can you see how much is looked at before you even look at how that baby is going to sleep? Now, granted, there are lots of babies where how they are going to sleep is no longer working. The rocking is no longer working, the bouncing is no longer working, the feeding is no longer working, it's not conducive to sleep, it's having an impact on maternal or paternal mental health, and baby actually isn't sleeping very well because it's clearly not working anymore. There's clearly a misalignment with how they're going to sleep and how they're sleeping. So what do? Well, we gradually and methodically work away from that settling strategy, using small habit stacking steps to get from where you are rocking to where you want to be, which might be putting baby down in their cot, patting them and shushing them to sleep, and then baby's done. In the middle of where you are to what your end goal is are little steps of how you just nudge yourself away from that level of intervention which is no longer working for your baby. Will your baby cry? Most probably yes, because if you change something, their only way of
they're not gonna like it.
they're not going to like it. They're going to cry. The difference between what myself and many other sleep consultants do in traditional sleep training, I'm never, ever, ever going to ask you to leave your baby to cry on their own. I'm never going to ask you to set arbitrary timers. I'm never going to tell you not to give your baby any eye contact. I don't do anything like that, okay? I support you with giving you the confidence that your baby is going to cry. That's okay, that's normal, that's what babies do. But I give you the tools that you need to be able to respond to your baby, whilst also there being a balance between giving them the opportunity to get used to what these new boundaries are around their sleep. So it's that really loving balance between making the change and kind of responding to their emotional needs.
Yeah, and also think that is quite reassuring as well as a parent, because nobody wants to see their child suffering. And you know, these other methods can be quite stressful as a parent as well, because you're looking at your baby and you cannot go and respond, and it just doesn't feel natural as a mother not to respond to your baby's cry. So definitely, just already from the parental side also makes more sense. Because it's not, you're not leaving your baby.
I think
to figure it out.
And that's the other thing. This is what paralyzes families into inaction. You know, they think of a sleep consultant, and the first thing that most people say to me is, I don't want to leave my baby to cry. And it's like, I'm not going to ask you to leave your baby to cry. There's so many other things that we're going to do before we even look at how that baby goes to sleep. And even when we're making those changes, dependent on the temperament and the personality of the baby and other things that I consider, when we look at the settling, you know, I'm not gonna, if you don't want to do, I'm never gonna force you to do something. So it's these nuggets of information that I know really empower parents to start to make that decision. If they think that they need to reach out for help, it gives them the confidence to say, oh, okay, I can reach out for help, and I will also be able to make these changes in a way that really aligns with my parenting beliefs and kind of how I feel about my parenting journey. And so, so it's kind of getting that sort of dialogue out there. So parents who are watching it go, oh my God, I don't need to struggle. Like, there are other options between cry out and wait it out, which is, people think they're the only two options, but they're not. There's so much else in the middle that obviously can really help parents with their little ones in their sleep.
Absolutely. That's very enlightening and very helpful, I think. And I think many parents would benefit from getting, I know, like you said, it is a privilege, but knowing at least that there is support out there, and that there's many ways and many things that can help with their baby sleep. Thank you, Emily. So how can people reach out to you? How do you support them? How do you work with parents? Do you one-to-ones? Home based?
So part of my mission with Snoozy is that I feel very passionate that I don't want to trap lots of this information behind a paywall. So I do my absolute best to give as much free content as possible on my Instagram, because I know private services, they're an economical privilege. I understand that. So if you are in a position where at this moment in time you can't afford a sleep consultant, then please jump onto my page. I've got so much free content on my Instagram, which is there for you all to devour. You can work your way through it. I've got lots of like long form videos and stuff. So do start there if you're not in a position to be able to work with me one-to-one. If you are fortunate to be able to work with someone privately, then I've got my one-to-one services, which is either a phone consultation or a home consultation. Home consultation is currently reserved only for those in Portsmouth, the Isle of Wight and Southampton, because that's kind of my area at the moment. But my phone consultations are global. So I've worked with families in Australia, Dubai, South Africa, New York. So anywhere in the world, I can help you. And to kind of connect with me on that, you just need to jump onto my website. You can send me an email from there, or you can just message me privately on Instagram. And I can send you more information about my services. But there's so much about me on my Instagram as well. So if anyone wants to sort of get to know me a little bit better, there's lots of videos and posts about me on my Instagram.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Emily, for your time and for sharing all this information with us. And yeah, I'll speak to you later.
Oh, thank you so much, Jasmine. Bye.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Bye.
So that was Emily, everyone. Thank you for joining us again on a Mothering and Matrescence Monday. I'll see you next Monday. And I've got 2 more weeks of these live sessions, and then we'll come to the end of it. And if you want to know about breastfeeding support, parental brain, we've had pelvic health, to talk about birth trauma, just head to my grid. There's loads of different lives that I've had different specialists, so have a look at them and watch them. And yeah, I'll see you next Monday. Bye bye.